August 26, 1980, Lake Tahoe, Nevada. At Harvey's Casino, the slots are ringing, the tables are full, and the air is heavy with cigarette smoke. Then, everything stops. Security orders an evacuation. There's a bomb in the building. A device delivered earlier in the day was, in fact, one of the most dangerous homemade explosives the FBI had ever faced. A criminal mastermind had set the stage for a high-stakes race against time. This is the story of the Harvey's Casino bomb.
Harvey's bomb was probably, for me, the biggest event or the biggest bombing case I was ever involved with.
By 8 a.m., security was evacuating guests. The FBI pushed through the crowd toward the second floor. What they found didn't look like a typical bomb. It was smooth, metallic gray, built like machinery. A large box with a smaller one fused on top. Hours earlier, a white van had delivered it. Two men in coveralls wheeled it in under a canvas stamped with an IBM logo. To hotel staff, it looked like a photocopier. Only later, with the discovery of a 3-page extortion letter, did the truth emerge. A sinister plot was in motion. The letter read,
"Stern warning to the management and bomb squad. Do not move or tilt this bomb because the mechanism controlling the detonators in it will set it off. Do not try to flood or gas the bomb. There is a float switch and an atmospheric pressure switch. Both are attached to detonators. Do not try to take some of these screws out because they're attached to triggers. The slightest movement, either inside or outside, will cause it to explode."
This device was a pretty sophisticated, quite complicated piece of machinery, unlike anything we'd ever seen before or anybody in the bomb disposal business had ever seen before. What we know about it afterwards is that it virtually was undefeatable. There were 8 fusing systems, as it turned out. Their timer simply was one of them. The anti-motion switch was another. The float mechanism was another. The device was enclosed in a metal box, and the lid of the box was secured by some flat head screws around the perimeter of the lid. Those screws were attached to wires and contacts so that if they were removed, that would detonate the device.
The FBI immediately had the bomb X-rayed, revealing 1,000 pounds of TNT inside. Over 100 FBI agents descended on the case. They flew in the best bomb experts in the country and ordered the fire department to set up a perimeter. But agents also needed time. To buy it, casino owner Harvey Gross and law enforcement began preparations to meet the ransom demand.
"We demand $3 million in used $100 bills. If we find anything wrong with the money, we will stop all instructions for moving the bomb. The money is to be delivered by helicopter. The pilot is to get out and stand by the chain-link fence gate. He has to wait for further instructions, which will be delivered by a taxi that will be hired before the pilot enters the helicopter. He has to take a strong flashlight and shine it around the inside of the helicopter so that it will light up the entire inside. Do not come armed with any weapon. All radio channels will be monitored. Do not try to be a hero. Arlington is full of them, and they can't even smell the flowers. Follow the orders strictly. Happy landing."
The mastermind designed the ransom drop to be as complicated as possible, hoping to outsmart law enforcement. But in the process, his plan began to unravel. At midnight, the pilot was supposed to fly low and search for a strobe light marking the landing zone. The signal never appeared, and contact was lost. After failing to complete the ransom drop, the FBI turned to a desperate plan.
Group consensus was they would try to create a tool a shape charge tool that could disrupt the device, basically cut it in half.
The idea was simple but perilous. A small explosion to destroy the brains of the device without triggering the 1,000 pounds of dynamite packed inside. By this point, the hotel, casino, and surrounding blocks had been cleared. Half the city had gathered nearby in morbid fascination, but the plan had a fatal flaw. Explosives were hidden in the top section of the device, a detail no one knew at the time.
When the attempt was made to render it safe, it exploded as intended, and we had terrific damage in that building, but fortunately no one was injured because there was time for evacuation.
The crowd erupted almost euphorically, as if they'd been waiting for this moment all day. It turned out neighboring casinos had been offering odds on the likelihood of the bomb going off. Half of Harvey's 11 stories were destroyed in the blast. And yet, after a tense 33-hour standoff, the only consolation to be had was that the impenetrable device had not killed anyone. However, for the FBI, the work was only beginning. They now faced a painstaking search through the rubble, and the urgent question of who had built it. The bomber was still out there. Speculation ran wild. Who could have caused $18 million in damage and terrorized the entire Lake Tahoe community? The FBI pursued every lead. At one point, they had nearly 500 suspects. A hotline was set up. Rewards were posted, eventually climbing to $500,000. The first serious lead came from a hotel owner in South Lake Tahoe that called in to report some suspicious activity involving a white van. The FBI followed that up right away, but it was just a dead end. And then, a few months later, another tip came in connected to the van that delivered the bomb. A young man called the Fresno field office and told agents that his girlfriend knew something. Her ex-boyfriend drove a white van. The tip led investigators to their first solid suspect, John Burgess, Jr. Agents found him living with 5 housemates in a house strewn with empty beer cans, reeking of marijuana. Hardly the profile of an intricate bomb-making mastermind. When questioned, Burgess Jr. lied about his whereabouts on the day of the bombing. But faced with the threat of federal charges and perjury, he broke, confessing his role in the extortion plot. He admitted that he and his brother Jim had driven his white van to a construction site in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Using a welding torch, they forced open an explosives magazine and stole over 1,000 pounds of dynamite sticks. But he insisted his role ended there. The true mastermind, he said, was his father, John Burgess Sr. Born in Hungary, Burgess Sr. claimed to have an IQ of 191 and to have spent 8 years in a KGB gulag before emigrating to California. He built a small fortune in landscaping, a fortune he had lost at Harvey's blackjack tables. In exchange for their testimony, John Jr. and Jim would receive leniency from the prosecutor. With the brothers' cooperation, the FBI had enough evidence to arrest their father, Big John, and 2 employees of his landscaping business, Bill Brown and Terry Lee Hall, who had helped deliver the bomb to Harvey's nearly a year earlier. A federal grand jury in Reno, Nevada, issued 4-count indictments against each of the 5 suspects in the bombing plot, including charges of attempts to interfere with commerce by threats of violence, interstate travel in aid of extortion, transportation of explosives in interstate commerce, and conspiracy to attempt extortion. John Jr. and his brother Jim both pleaded guilty to conspiracy and were sentenced to probation. Their accomplices, Bill Brown and Terry Lee Hall, each received 7-year prison sentences, and the mastermind, John Burgess Sr., was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. 16 years after the explosion, he died of liver cancer at the Southern Nevada Correctional Center. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. New uploads weekly.